Mr Graham Jones, and can I just remind the House that it is a maiden speech?
Thank you, Mr Speaker, for allowing me to make my maiden speech, and may I congratulate the member for Witham on her maiden speech a couple of speeches back. It's an honour and a humbling privilege to represent Haslingden and Hyndburn in this House, a constituency that sits in the impoverished East Lancashire corridor with its companion constituencies of Blackburn, Burnley and Pendle, some 18 miles north of Manchester. It's a valley littered with the history of a bygone industrial heritage, mill towns that earned Britain great wealth and to which the demise of King Cotton has run in parallel with economic difficulty. My grandfather and grandmother, for whom I owe so much, but for whom reside now in a far greater place, would beam with pride. It was family and the lack of prosperity in the Thatcherite 80s that capped people's aspirations and life chances that determined my political persuasions. It is the strength and courage of party colleagues that has brought me to this place, and I am eternally grateful for that. The local government of area of Hyndburn was formed in 1974 and makes up 6/7 of the constituency. It constitutes the boroughs of Accrington, the urban districts of Church, Clayton-le-Moors, Rishton, Altham, Great Harwood and Oswaldtwistle. Haslingden is a town that sits in the Rosendale Valley, a proud market town famous for cotton and textile manufacturing, and the famous 19th century Irish Republican leader and parliamentarian Michael Davitt. My constituency stretches to the rural north to a place I understand to be a one-party state known as the Ribble Valley. Parliamentary boundaries do throw up odd surprises, Mr Deputy Speaker, and whilst canvassing the borders of this iron curtain of political difference, I discovered the annexation of several farms whose cherished Ribble Valley postal address, BB7 Clitheroe, now falls within Hyndburn. My predecessor, Greg Pope, still maintains with great assurance that his 22,000 defeat in the Ribble Valley constituency in 1987 was all down to rain on the day affecting the Labour turnout. I have to say, Mr Deputy Speaker, having heard the laudable and extravagant claims to the primacy of the Industrial Revolution, I feel bound by duty to honour the history of my constituents and constituency in wrestling away that title of the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution from the member for Stoke-on-Trent Central, who referred to this in his maiden speech, and has a keen eye for history, and also the member for Derby North. James Hargreaves, as we all know, invented the spinning jenny, a gobbiner from Oswaldtwistle in 1764, which revolutionised the manufacture and mass production of cotton. And by the 1830s, approximately 85% of all cotton manufactured worldwide was processed in Lancashire. Now, many maiden speeches, Mr Deputy Speaker, and I've listened to a few, shamelessly act as a tourist bulletin for their constituency, and I intend in my maiden speech to shamelessly follow that trend. The constituency is famous for the Accrington Norite brick, and obviously educational standards have gone up because it was painted upwards when it was supposed to be painted downwards, and it was used in the construction of the Empire State Building and Blackpool Tower. Europe's largest Tiffany glass collection sits within the constituency, and of course there's Accrington Stanley. The club has risen from bankruptcy, and I can only inform the House it is on an assured footing under the stewardship of my friend Ilias Khan, whose commitment to the club, passion for the area and dedication to the Leonard Cheshire disability I must commend. One cannot mention the constituency without honouring the 11th East Lancashire Regiment known as the Accrington Pals. The Pals' first day of action was on the Battle of the Somme on the 1st of July 1916 at Sierre in northern France. Within half an hour of their advance into fierce resistance, 235 men were killed and a further 350 wounded, more than half the battalion. It devastated whole families, and it was said then that there wasn't a single street unaffected. At this point, Mr Deputy Speaker, I'd like to say a few words about my predecessor, Greg Pope, which is honoured tradition in this place. But before I do, I would like to place in Hansard a word of thanks to his predecessor, who sat on the benches opposite. Greg Pope, in his maiden speech, said of Ken Hargreaves 18 years ago that it is no overstatement to say that he devoted his life to representing the people of Hyndburn. And I can only report to the House that that remains true 18 years further on. It is fair to say that Greg was everyone's friend, articulate, thoughtful, he cared about his constituents, bequeathing a constituency office with, in my view, a service to constituents second to none. Greg, like myself, traversed a local path into Parliament, beginning his political life in the hometown of Great Harwood as a councillor back in 1984 under the wings of George Slynn. Rainy days in the Ribble Valley did not deter his determination, and he was rewarded on a sunny day in 1992 when the Labour vote did come out in Hyndburn. He secured 4 terms of office as the Member of Parliament for Hyndburn. His vast experience as a member of this House will be missed by all sides, as will his pleasantness, demeanour, his honesty, sincerity, and particularly his expertise in foreign affairs. It would be remiss of me, Mr Deputy Speaker, and he would welcome me saying this, to remind the House that he is thought to be the only Member of Parliament to have invaded the stage during a gig by The Clash in 1978. And that as such his musical nobility is assured when the Honourable Member for Oldham and Saddleworth was drawn to suggest in a Westminster Hall debate that this was, and I quote that member, in my mind a badge of honour, and I commend him. Finally, Mr Deputy Speaker, let me speak about the challenges briefly facing my constituency in the coming years. Despite investment by the last government, which has seen significant improvements in some areas, much needs to be done. Some 40% of privately owned residential properties in the constituency are not up to the decency standard, and over 10% are unfit for human habitation. There is somewhere towards 2,500 empty properties, including the town of Asland and in Rosendale, and today some wards in Accrington rank amongst the most deprived in the country, both in terms of healthcare, life expectancy and other indicators. The government's housing market renewal programme is attempting to remedy these problems, but it goes without saying the huge cuts in funding handed out so far, particularly to my area, which is one of the most affected, will blight the local economy, and possibly for a second time following the 18 years of Thatcherism. Hyndburn has one of the lowest rates of participation in adult sports and recreation in Lancashire, and the 3rd lowest in the country. I want to conclude quickly, if I may, Mr Speaker. In my constituency, it is not possible to create opportunities whereby the private sector can solve these fundamental issues without public sector support, and I intend to be a fierce and vocal supporter of my constituents' interests in this House. Yeah.